Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading Charles Band and all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, a person who is only worthy of being despised and dominated, coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. Is there another murderous doll who is taking this voyage with me today?
Oh, there sure is. I'm podcast baby Steve Guntley. Glad to be here, reporting in from Austin, Texas. This is the podcast that's all about tiny heads, drill chairs, and clown bodyguards. That's because this is a movie or a podcast about blood dolls. And I have to tell you, sometimes, so I always do this little copy before every episode where I pick like the 3 wildest things to highlight. And usually I'm like scrounging a little bit to find like the full 3, like the right 3. This one I had to pare it down. All right, I had to really pare it down to talk about which wild thing, because holy shit, this movie, Blood Dolls, is an absolutely wild ride. And fortunately, we brought some dolls along with us so that we could properly discuss it.
You nailed it. You said this is a wild ride, and we would be doing the world a disservice if we did not bring in a pair of experts to talk about this movie with us. And I can't think of anybody that I would rather talk about Blood Dolls with than the hosts of the amazing podcast, The Dolls of Horror themselves, Summer and Jamie. Summer and Jamie, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. You know, we'd like to have us some doll time, so thanks.
We're going to have a dolly good time. Hey, and we have a third doll guest for you.
Oh, boy. Oh my God! You actually have a pimp figurine. Oh my God!
I didn't even know this.
He's my baby. I've had him for forever. He has lost his head, so I just kind of prop his head on when I keep him on my shelf. But
wow!
Cutie, he's my baby.
That is amazing.
That's amazing. And you know what? That, Summer, I have to say, that is a level of commitment that usually only I bring to this show.
Oh, she got dolls. She got bars. She got dolls.
Okay, all right.
Dolls. Oh boy.
So Summer and Jamie, do us a quick favor. We'll get into our introductory question that we like to ask all our guests in just a minute, but I prefaced your Dolls of Horror podcast. So if you guys would indulge us and our listeners just for a minute, tell us a little bit about what you guys do on your show, because it's really incredible.
We pick a movie every week and we break it down by segments, such as favorite kill, fashion moment, best hair, epic line, prop we would like to own. We delve into cinematography and special effects, of course. We break down our cast list and what previous credits or post credits they have done, and go on from there, man. We just have a great time, right, Jamie?
Oh yeah, we talk fun facts. We really tear apart the fashion and the hair. We love us some 80s movies. You know, you can't go wrong there. And then sometimes we have guests on too to play with us and have some fun talking about a movie. We sometimes also bring on actors, filmmakers to talk about what they're working on. So sometimes we do just straight up interviews with folks too.
Oh, amazing. No, it's such a fun show. You guys have such a great dynamic, so I'm glad you guys were able to join us.
Have a terrific dynamic, and if I must say so, like, you've also been picking stuff that's been kind of in my wheelhouse. So it's like when I see new posts and things of episodes coming out, it's always something that's interesting to me personally, and I'm always like, oh, that's awesome, they're going to cover this, and I love that. So yeah, I really am so happy to get you guys here to collab with us about this particular movie. Now, generally, as a rule, we have the guests pick the movie, and this today is no different. You guys, you picked this movie without a lot of hesitation, if I'm being completely honest. And you know, Steve and I have spent a lot of time talking about our upbringing, how we discovered horror movies, how we perused the shelves of the video store, and what it meant to us when we were young, and the experience that we had. And it's like, you got to be a certain kind of person to have an affinity for Blood Dolls as your go-to movie. So I want to know from both of you, when did you discover horror? Like, was it Full Moon stuff early on, or was there something else that was a gateway? And then how did you know that it was going to be something that you were going to take on as a hobby and a profession? Because Summer, I know you do a lot of stuff with Days of the Dead also, which I would love for you to talk about as well. And so I just want to know kind of like your journey of like where it started and how it got you to where you guys are now.
Jamie, I'll let you go first on this one.
All right.
Mm.
So honestly, the gateway for me was books. I was such a book reader when I was a kid. I was a 90s kid, so I got to grow up with Goosebumps and everything like that. Loved those. Moved up to Fear Street, all of those Christopher Pike books. And I think like the first horror movie I actually saw that kind of affected me was The Birds. It was on TV.
Mm.
It scared me, and I liked it. I just didn't really fully realize how much I liked it and that it would become a full-blown obsession for me. I would sneak horror movies here and there when I was younger in the movie stores. I would always kind of look at the horror section. I wasn't really supposed to be there, but I wanted to be there so
Well,
bad.
that was the best part of it.
Exactly. It made me want to be there even more. And so when I when I was a teenager, that's when I really went full blown, just devouring horror movies. I was kind of scholarly with it when the internet kind of became a thing. I was like, what do I need to see? Okay, like here's my genres, here's my directors. And I kind of just explored like crazy. I really grew up on like trauma movies. So Full Moon kind of came to me a little after Trauma, but my friend who kind of brought me into the trauma world is the one who brought me into the Full Moon world. And I loved it too. I love funny stuff. I love freaky, kind of kinky, funny, bizarre, wild rides. And this one is definitely no exception.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
trauma is something I discovered before Full Moon, and there was a lot of trauma movies, maybe 25 years ago or so, that my friends and I kind of discovered together, and we really had a deep appreciation for the company, and
Yeah,
so
we
I
really
could
don't
see.
talk enough about trauma and how it's just kind of Full Moon's like paint huffing cousin. It's just like they're operating in the same sort of area, but like much trashier, much grosser, like, and just a lot of fun. I love trauma.
It's a beautiful cesspool. It really, really is.
Yes,
Like trauma
absolutely.
is like farty and fun and bloody, and I love it. It's like my favorite thing. But I love Full Moon too because they are like cousins.
Yeah, Full Moon feels like it sometimes has more like filmmakery aspirations than trauma,
Totally.
which is just like, yeah, we know what we're making. We're just gonna throw a bunch of dick monsters in here and just
Totally.
call it a day.
Yeah, and
Yes.
like the amount of like how much I guess how much I can take of like a trauma might be less than Full Moon, but I've met
Yeah.
Lloyd Kaufman a couple times, and every time I'm always kind of like just taken aback by like his career and what he has been able to accomplish in the avenues in which he's done it. It's like whether you love trauma movies or you hate them, like you have to have nothing but admiration. Similarly to Charles Band, of a guy like Lloyd Kaufman. It's like you just, even if you aren't a fan personally of the movies, and there's trauma movies that I really love, and there's ones that I won't watch or that didn't interest me. But when I was faced with like Lloyd Kaufman in person, it was like a big thing. Like, holy shit, Uncle Lloyd.
And he's not even a big guy; he's just a little guy. And Summer, how about you?
Well, I started with movies. I was not a good reader as a child. I probably was a little dyslexic or something, undiagnosed, because I just couldn't comprehend books. I knew the words, but I couldn't figure them out until later. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I started with horror films at 8 years old. I was at my grandma's house, and every weekend, as we did at grandma's house, we rented movies. And my Aunt Deanna, I love her dearly, rented Suspiria, of course, the
Oh,
original,
wow.
because this was back in 1990. And I loved the ballet. I loved witches. Like The Worst Witch was my favorite kids movie, right? And I was like, ballet and witches, what? And from then on, full blown obsessed right then, right there. I loved it. I wanted more. I had no idea what this horror world was, but I knew I had to have more. Yeah, that was my gateway drug, Suspiria and Argento. And
As good a gateway drug as we've heard from anyone so far.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
my second horror film, probably the next weekend, I would love to say, is a film called Retribution. It's not very good.
Retribution. I don't know that one. Yeah.
It stars, was it Suzanne Schneider from Killer Clowns from Outer Space, our
Aw.
leading lady.
Oh.
It's about a guy that jumps off of a not very tall building to try to kill himself and fails, of course, because it's like 4 stories. And
Oh.
then he's getting like haunted by all these like possession ghost things. Anyway, I saw it again as an adult. It doesn't hold up as well as Suspiria does. But
You do.
those two movies back to back really like locked me in, and then it was all horror all the time after that. Around 5th grade, I was determined to read an R.L. Stein book, a Fear Street book. I really liked the cover. It was The New Girl. I was determined to get through it, and it took me forever and a day. But when I finally completed that last page of that book, I felt victorious. And then I was hooked on reading Fear Street, and slowly but surely I got better at reading. So I credit R.L. Stein with teaching me how to read, honestly.
Oh, we love you, R.L. Stein. Thank
Yes.
you.
That's amazing. Did you check out those Fear Street movies on Netflix when they came out?
I saw
I
part.
still haven't.
I saw
Yeah.
part of the first one, and it didn't pull me in. I know I need to give it a chance.
I do
Yeah,
too.
they're kind of fun. Yeah, I think the
Oh, yeah.
second one was my favorite, but yeah, they get pretty brutal. I was
Yeah.
surprised at how bloody those movies got.
I liked them more than I expected to. So
Yeah.
I would recommend them.
Okay.
I'd say go back and kind of
Yeah.
just stick with it a little bit because I
Yeah.
think they're pretty fun.
I know I have to give it a chance. I did.
I need to give it a
fair
chance.
I haven't. That's no excuse. I haven't.
Yeah.
And as far as Full Moon, I've always loved doll movies. So I gravitated towards Puppet Master, Chucky, Dolly Dearest, right? All those. And of course, Puppet Master was a great one. I think Charles Band's Dolls was actually my first doll movie, though.
Oh, okay, nice.
I love me some dolls, right?
I mentioned in another show that the VHS cover for Dolls when I was young was one that, like, as I was starting to get interested in horror movies, but I was kind of just dipping my toe in, was the one that was a little too intense for me. Like, I remember being like,
Yeah.
I was probably like 7 years old or something when it came out on video, and it was like, nope, not that one. That's crossing a line like that. The weird thing is, like, I've talked on the show before about how, like, I saw Dream Warriors really young, and I was hooked on horror movies from that moment on. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street 4 in the movie theater. I was
Lucky.
young. I was in like
Have
second
it.
grade, and my 16-year-old cousin took me unsupervised to the movie to see it, which was
Awesome.
amazing. But I had like Freddy fever, and I tell the story all the time about how he took me to this movie like someone was taking me to a concert. Like it was like I was going to
Aw.
see my idol on screen, and it had happened quickly because I feel like from the time Dream Warriors was out on video, which was where I discovered it when it was brand new on VHS, to when part 4 was in the theaters, this was probably like only like 6 to 8 month period.
Mhm, it's
And
true.
I just remember like that was my one. But then for some reason around the same time, the TV trailer for Child's Play scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the boxes for Dolls and Monkey Shines were too
Monkey
extreme
Shines.
for me. I remember just being like, nope, I'm not messing with those. And then the kicker out of all of them, just to show you that like you can't judge a book by its cover. I grew up in New York City, and when I saw the TV trailer for Jason Takes Manhattan, it was the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life, because I was just kind of getting into Friday the 13th movies, and I was like, oh shit, Jason's gonna come get me.
Yeah.
Like, he's not in
right?
camp anymore. I don't even have to go to camp, and he's going to find me.
Turns out he was
That's-
mostly in Vancouver, though.
He
so you're
was. He was
fine.
Yes.
10,000
You're
miles
fine.
away. So I
Yeah.
was pretty
And on a
safe.
boat.
They were taking that Vancouver to New York ferry that everyone takes, you know. Yeah.
It's from Crystal Lake, New Jersey to Vancouver to New York. It's sort of
Oh,
a
that's it.
roundabout.
Yeah.
That's a
Correct.
very
But
roundabout.
this is a
right.
tangent we do not need to go off on this episode. But Summer, continue.
Oh gosh, I forgot. Okay, Puppet Master. I love the Puppet Master ones. I thought they were just the best things ever. And unlike Jamie, like, she was intrigued by, kind of unlike and like Jamie, she was intrigued by the horror section of the video store. Up until I was obsessed with horror, I was terrified of the horror section. I remember a cardboard cutout of Freddy from part 2. And being just terrified. And my mom had to like keep me
Oh.
away from that area of the video store. But I also remember really wanting to look, but then being scared. But
Yes.
wanting to look, but being scared. It was the same thing at the drugstore with all the Halloween masks.
Mhm.
I just cried. I cried. She reminded me of this like last year. I cried every time I walked down that aisle or got near that aisle. But then all of a sudden something clicked, and I was like all in on the horror at 8, and I could not get enough of it. But yeah, so Full Moon, always been a Full Moon fan, probably maybe from the age of 10 on. And I'm not so much into Troma like Jamie. Jamie's kind of introducing me more into Troma. There are a few Troma movies that I have seen, like the witchcraft movies and stuff, which I really liked. But yeah, I'm all about the full moon and Charles Band, and meeting Charles Band for the first time. I was fangirling a little bit, just a little bit. I seriously, he was at a convention I was at for like one day, and we watched his panel, and then my husband and my friend went to go and get something to eat, and I was like, God, I got to meet him. He's going to leave soon. I got to go meet him. And so I went and I met him, and then he had a 6-shooter doll for sale.
Oh.
And I was like, how much for the 6-shooter? And he gave me the price, and I'm like, sold. So he sold it to me. He signed it, took pictures with me, with him, with it. And it's a big guy. He's like 3 feet tall. Not 3, 2.5 feet tall, right? He's a big one. He's very long. I had to buy a special stand because he's so long. And I walked back to the restaurant with my doll in his bubble wrap, and I remember just sinking into the seat going, I bought another doll. In shame. And he's like, again? I'm like, I know.
Yeah, but those circumstances warrant buying a doll. Like, it doesn't matter if this is your sick obsession. Like,
and you really better hope that none of these are actually going to come to life too, or else you're screwed. Like, you've already got a little pimp in there. You've got a lot. Yeah.
I have. I think I have the full Puppet Master Part 1 collection now.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've got the 6-shooter. I have some stuff from Retro. I got Cyclops.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I have a fair amount of Puppet Master replica dolls, which are like my prized possessions. I love them so dearly, and I have a good guy now, and I've got the clown from Dead Silence, and I got all sorts of good dolls in there.
Amazing.
I would like to fantasize that if they came to life, I would like to fantasize that if they did come to life, we'd all just have a party and play together.
Yeah, they'd recognize you as one of their own. Yeah,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about these particular dolls in Blood Dolls. So, Steve, if you don't mind, can you fire off a couple of stats about this movie for us?
Absolutely. There's some very fascinating behind-the-scenes stuff on this movie in particular. Blood Dolls was released on November 30th, 1999. It's directed and written by Charles Band. I believe he was using his Robert Talbot pseudonym for this one, which we'll get into it. But Robert Talbot let him get away with some wild stuff. He had a real stretch of Robert Talbot movies in the 90s that are some of the most fun that we'll talk about. This movie stars Jack Maturin, Deborah Mayer, William Paul Burns, Warren Draper, Nicholas Worth, Jodie Cody, and the great Phil Fondacaro. All right, so the biggest thing about this movie is that Penelope Spheeris, the director of Wayne's World and The Decline of Western Civilization, a bunch of amazing movies, she was actually hired to make a documentary about the making of this movie. And Charles Band jokes that this is the first time that a documentary had a bigger budget than the movie it was making a film about.
Sure.
Because the idea here was that, okay, the central kind of, I wouldn't even call them central characters. They're like side, they're more like a Greek chorus, but there's this Greek chorus of 4 young women who are trapped in a cage who play rock music under the name. In the movie, it goes by the Caged Babies, but originally these were the Blood Dolls. That was the name of their band. They were called the Blood Dolls. And Miles Copeland was a producer on this movie. He is best known as the manager of the Police and REM and a bunch of other like really big bands from the 80s.
Brother of Stuart Copeland?
Brother of Stuart Copeland, yeah, absolutely. So his big push was they were going to make the Blood Dolls into like a crossover act. And the movie that Penelope Spheeris was making, it was called Hollyweird. She was going to be following the Blood Dolls on their nationwide tour, where they were trying to promote themselves as like the anti-Spice Girls. That was kind of the whole vibe that they were going for. Fun idea, fun concept. Unfortunately, things fell apart a little bit because one of the band members, I believe Cotton Baby, Vanessa Taylor, she was involved with a very high-powered lawyer at the time. The name wasn't really mentioned specifically in Dave J's book, but it is implied that it was Michael Jackson's lawyer from his 1994 allegations. I'll let folks look into that on their own. But either way, very high-powered, very effective lawyer who took one look at the contract that Charles Band and Miles Copeland had come up with and said, nope, not happening. So that whole thing fell apart. Miles Copeland walked away from the project entirely. So all the music in this was done by Richard Band in the end. And there were just the movie that Penelope Spheres was making was canceled. She spliced together a 6-minute short that kind of got shoved unceremoniously onto some of the DVD releases, but that was supposed to be a full-length movie chronicling this whole attempt to make this sort of gothy girl group.
Robbed we were.
We were
I
robbed.
know.
This
That's
because
like the
I
best
want
Making the
this so
Band.
bad.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
do
that's very
too.
Making the Band. Yeah, it's very like Project
Like
Greenlight kind of
dream
idea.
girl group. Like,
Mhm.
seriously, I would have watched that. I'd watch that today. Like, where can I get the 6-minute short? Like,
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I think you can
tracked-
still find
well,
that on the Full Moon website.
I
Okay.
almost just misspoke and said that I tracked it down. No, I attempted to track down any semblance of other footage from Hollyweird, and it is impossible to find, to my
Yeah.
knowledge. Listeners,
Yeah.
if you know where to find this footage, puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com, please let us know, because in reading about this, so this movie is one of the Full Moon movies that I had seen, maybe not in its entirety, but it was one that was referenced when I didn't know it as such at the time, but when friends of mine would talk about what we would call at the time later stage Full Moon movies, which is a 25-year-old movie, is not later stage Full Moon, but the Kirshner Locke era of Full Moon.
Yeah.
This was sort of one that was held up as one that you have to see.
We talked a little bit about Killjoy as kind of the whether it's fair or unfair, like it's kind of the line of demarcation in terms of quality for Full Moon. Like there's a really interesting, crazy run in the post Paramount era where they, like you said, the Kushner Locke era, as it's known, where we're making some very experimental, weird stuff. And I think Blood Dolls is definitely the final product of that. This feels like kind of the last gasp of this era before, shit really hit the fan and they needed to start conserving as much money as possible. But really, I think the most fascinating thing for me to discover about Blood Dolls, which this was my first time watching this was not on my radar really at all. This is basically a sister movie to Head of the Family.
Mm-hmm.
This is another like very weird Southern Gothic Tennessee Williams style overwrought melodrama with a guy with a misshapen head.
It was supposed to be a trilogy. Did you know that?
I knew there
Really?
was supposed to be a sequel, like to like Bride of Head of the Family or
Mhm.
something like that. There was supposed to be a sequel that never came about. Was this originally supposed to be part
Yeah,
of that
this is
trilogy?
part 2.
Wow,
Wow.
amazing.
Yep.
Okay, so this was expressly
awesome.
going to be part of that.
That makes sense.
I'm super nerdy with this. I also got so many fun facts up here about this movie. It's
Please,
kind
no,
of
lay
embarrassing.
'em on us.
We welcome it.
Don't be embarrassed. I'm
You
proud
are-
of you. I'm impressed.
This is the one place in the world where you don't need to be embarrassed about having
Yes.
those facts in your head. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, so it's originally supposed to be Head of the Family. That was 1996, and then he did Blood Dolls, thinking this was going to be part 2
Hmm.
and a trilogy, and then Bride of the Head, which of course, as we know, was never made.
Yeah.
But even like in the interviews promoting Blood Dolls from like the conventions that Charles Band was doing, he talked about Bride of the Head and how that's going to be the continuation, and that's actually why they chose that second ending that they
Mm.
did.
I was so curious about that.
So it would lead
Same.
into Head, because the first ending was what was originally written in the script, but that's really
Okay.
not his feeling. That's not what Charles Band wanted. So he's like, well, let's just try this, and then that would segue into the Bride of the Head.
That is such a fascinating approach. I mean, I'm going to kind of just jump to the end a little bit because I have to talk about
Sorry.
this. This is one of the
Yes.
weirdest.
Do it up, man.
This is one of the weirdest choices I've ever seen in a movie. Like, this isn't even like, like you say multiple endings. You think of a movie like Clue, where that's kind of like the joke. It's like there are multiple endings, but it's not because they were indecisive. It's because
Yeah.
they wanted to see how all of these things played out for comedy. This feels like it was indecisiveness, and now it makes more sense that he's just like leaving the door open for a potential sequel should things work
Yeah.
out. But it's so weird. Like, listeners, if you haven't watched this yet, first of all, go watch this. Holy
Yes.
shit, it's
Come
unbelievable.
on.
But yeah, the movie essentially ends like the girls escape, like the bad guys are defeated, and the movie just ends with this nice happy ending.
And the
And
dolls
then-
never go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they get to save the dolls and
Mhm.
everything. And so then the movie fades to black, and the bodyguard character, Mr. Mascaro, he comes out and addresses the camera directly, saying like that we actually wrote another ending, and this is it.
It's so weird. It's so kind of jarring. It's almost like you expect, like he says, you expect to cut to credits, but then Mr. Mascaro walks out like he is performing on like a Brechtian set
Yeah.
with
Right, yeah, it's very
nothing
black
behind
box,
him, and
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
he's like, oh, we weren't really a fan of that ending, and then they redo it, and it's just that's kind of what I really love about this movie is we've criticized things about full moon movies in the past where we've said there's an idea here, there's a concept, and it's like they're willing to take some swings, but you really see the way that they're bound by production, deadlines, budget, whatever it might be. But this one, I feel like they just hit every single batshit note that you need for a full moon B movie. Like you could not add. It's like it makes complete sense then when you sit back and think about it, given the nature of this movie. This is a very much, even if this is a small budget movie, this is a nothing is off limits movie, and I
Absolutely,
love
yeah.
it for that.
That's a really good way to approach it. Like, because this and Head of the Family is just Band letting his freak flag fly. He is
Yes.
getting as weird as possible with it. These are the horniest movies he's made. These are some of the most violent movies he's made. Like it's just so fun to watch him go like just completely off the rails in such a delightful way. And it feels like he's having fun, and it feels like everybody behind or like on screen is having fun participating in this.
And that really infects us with the fun.
Yeah.
Like this, honestly, I had like such a long week. When I put this on, I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I need right now. Literally, the tagline is freaks, lust, and mayhem. There you go.
I was not all that excited to watch this movie, to be honest, like because it wasn't really on my radar. I didn't know what it was. I'm just like, okay, well, all right, well, we got more killer dolls. Like I found Demonic Toys a little disappointing. I was getting a little dolled out, and then this one comes on, and I'm just like, from moment one, I'm like, this is insane. Like this movie starts, it's not going 0 to 60, it's going 60 to 350. Like it starts with its foot on the gas.
It really does. It starts with some amazing walking exposition.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
they're having a conversation that can't last longer than like 45 seconds from like a car door to a front door.
Yeah,
Where it's
a
like,
driveway's length of
oh, don't
exposition.
be
Yeah.
surprised if you go inside and there's a female rock band that's in a cage. Don't be surprised if there's a clown. Don't be surprised if he's wearing a mask. It's just like all thrown at you so fast, and it's like so unbelievably hilarious and economical.
Yes.
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, because it just has no interest in wasting time in anything. It's just like we're gonna get to this setup, and it's not even like a slow reveal of why Virgil wears a mask. You know, we get that reveal pretty early on, and I snorted laughing. Like I laughed so hard when he pulled off that mask, and it's just like a little baby doll head. Like
Yes.
it's like 3 baby dolls in a trench coat trying to get into an R-rated movie. I'm just like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's
but
amazing
so
what
funny.
changing like body proportions can do, right? I mean, it's such a win. Like every time, like this was such a win. This is my first time seeing this movie too, and I really thought that, and I really thought that the mask was going to be on for longer. You
All
know,
right,
but
so we've got
we
Team
really-
Summer and Jared versus Team
Yeah.
Steve and Jamie. Got it.
All right, let's do that.
And we all agree apparently, so it's not much of a
Yes.
competition. But either way, yeah. I mean, it's just kind of one batshit note after another. Like the reveal early on of this female rock band that is kept in an electrified cage that Phil Fondacaro will jab with a cattle prod every once in a while when he wants them to play music.
Play
These
number
girls-
7.
Yeah.
Like these girls don't seem to have access to a bathroom or a shower or anything, but they're always very glammed up and like looking like stage ready and ready to perform. And they always defy the cattle prod like initially, and then it's just one zap, and they're like, okay, ding 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 ding, you know, like
Well, they get
immediately
the cage
into
gets
it.
cattle prodded, and they come shooting out of a room that I can only imagine is like electrically charged.
I know.
I think they show there's like chicken wire on the floor of the cage. So A+ perfect movie makes complete sense. Yes, but I mean that's just kind of a wild idea to begin with. Like he doesn't have a radio; he's just got 4 girls in a cage that he electrocutes and makes them sing. And the songs are kind of fun.
Let me stop you right there. Not to disagree with you,
Yeah,
but I'm in the habit of when I watch these movies, I watch them with my earbuds in, with the Bluetooth connected.
Uh-huh.
And I will say that the mixing, at least to the version of this that I watched, was really good. It sounded like I was listening to an album
Mhm.
on my headphones. The low end and the bass in the first song, especially, was so deep.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this sounds amazing. It sounded just so thick and full. And the songs are really like pretty catchy. And I mean, I would expect no less from Razor Baby, Cotton Baby, Black Baby, and Shirley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite baby?
Oh man.
That's really tough.
How do you pick?
I
Yeah, this is
I
a
was going to
Sophie's
say
Choice times
Razor
two.
Baby because I was contemplating coming into the show as Jared Razor Baby Hornbeck in my introduction, but I decided not to do that.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know if I have a favorite one. Yeah, they all are so distinctive.
Razor's
Yeah,
my favorite.
Razor. I saw
All the
them as
time.
such a cohesive unit. You
Mhm.
know, they're almost like a character together. So I really kind of viewed them as a whole. So it's hard for me to pick an individual one.
For Scooby-Doo fans, there's a big Hex Girls energy coming off
Yes.
of the caged babies. Yeah, they've
Yes.
got that kind of vibe, and that it's fun to have them sort of throughout. They're just sort of backgrounded, and you do get this. I believe the intention was to make this more musically oriented than the movie ultimately became, because of all those contract issues. But having them kind of serve as this chorus going throughout the movie is a pretty fun idea.
Yeah, it
Like, they
reminded me
never
of Little
really-
Shop of
yeah.
Horrors with the three singers,
Exactly.
Yes.
which is also every time they cut to them, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And they did record. Like, I think they said they actually laid out and recorded 8 songs.
Oh wow.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like these songs sound, and I want to take this opportunity to kind of to tangent slightly. These songs sound professionally recorded,
They do.
which is not always a luxury you get in. But I do have to say that from whether or not it works like it does here, or whether it's a complete misfire, I really enjoy fictional bands in movies. Like it got me thinking of like, your Dragon Sound from Miami Connection,
Mhm.
or Diane Lane's band from Streets of Fire, or like, just other like fictional bands. I guess Josie and the Pussycats, which is, we
Oh.
talked in one of our podcasts recently about how that was a big underappreciated movie when it came out, and it's found its
Yeah.
audience after the fact, which is great. But I love fictional bands. The band from Slumber Party Massacre 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
The Black Roses, yeah, all of those. Yeah.
Rock and
you're
Roll
in good
Nightmare.
company, my friends, because we love like fictional bands and horror movies. We always note that when we watch one. What's the one we watched where there was like a whole music video in the beginning somewhere?
Killer Party.
Killer
Yeah.
Party.
Oh,
Yeah.
Killer Party. Yeah,
Love
totally.
it. Throw
That
a
was
music
such a
video
weird
in the
move.
middle. Oh my god.
Yeah. That's a
And
weird move.
we've done some movies recently, like I say recently, the last year, 2 years, where bands have been constantly like in the background. They're not
Yeah.
fictional bands, but they're not well-known bands. Like 4 out of 5 Doctors in House on Sorority Row, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
They play a whole set at a party. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 songs in that movie, right? They're on stage
Yeah.
playing. And then New Year's Evil, we got those bands up there playing, and those were real songs
New Year's
too.
Yeah.
Eve.
But you've
Mhm.
never
Oh,
heard
yeah.
of these bands before, but they were real. They were out there.
They
I
should have
mean,
a concert. A big
we
festival.
should reunite the Cage Babies. Absolutely. Like bring them
Yes.
together. Like, yeah, I question whether or not,
GoFundMe.com. Reunite the babies.
I question whether this anti-Spice Girls idea would have really taken off in a big way, because this was not like a big high profile movie, but you know what? We could have done worse. We did do worse. There were a lot of like bigger bands that were way worse than this. So yeah, I think that would have been fun. But really the music isn't even the main focus here. The main focus is this very like similar to Head of the Family. It's this very overwrought Southern Gothic melodrama, like about a tech billionaire trying to seek revenge, and then there's secretly like this power player like working behind the scenes who's been manipulating this all along, but he doesn't suspect her because she's just the meager housewife of the billionaire man, who is revealed to just be a Beavis and Butthead level kink idiot. I guess it's like, I don't know how else to describe him. Like
Fan name stealing that, by the way.
he's just like such a fool, and like he's got this goofy little like laugh that he's constantly doing, and it's funny to me that anybody in this universe believed him for a second that he was like the brains of the operation. But again, Elon Musk, we can, we all bought that for a while.
This is a
Yeah,
great
so-
opportunity to give some credit to Deborah Mayer for her performance as Moira.
Yeah.
She's so much fun.
Very, very fun. Yeah, yeah. I believe she would show up for a few other full moons around this time, Voodoo Academy and a couple of things like
Yeah.
that.
She unfortunately passed pretty young, my
Aw.
understanding.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she died
Bummer.
about 7 or 8 years ago, and
Yeah.
she was only 46.
May
wow.
That's a
2015.
baby.
When the first time we did this movie, her death was undisclosed. Now it's online online, so could be
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah.
Prescription drug overdose.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's unfortunate to hear.
Yeah.
She is
That's a
great
real shame. She's
energy
very
in
funny
this
in
movie.
this.
Really fun.
No. And maybe I
Yeah.
want to see more of her because I haven't
Yeah.
really seen much of her. And I'm like, okay, well, I officially need to seek like every movie I can with her in it because she was great.
And
Yeah,
she
it
was
looks like this-
Sassy and hot. And
This
yeah.
is her first movie. She'd done one episode of General Hospital before this.
Wow.
And then she has a little full moon run where she does Voodoo Academy and Spec, Hell Asylum, Dr. Moreau's House of Pain, Decadent Evil, Ginger Dead Man. She's in a few of these.
Crypts.
Is
Stitches.
Crips one of them? Yeah, yeah.
2000 Stitches from 2001. She did an episode of Charmed.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So she was around for a little bit, but
She
yeah.
also was a stand-up comedian at some point, and
Oh.
when this movie was being filmed, she was a substitute junior high school and high school teacher for the LA County School District.
Oh, wow.
She'd been my teacher. That's so dope. That's so cool.
Right?
I bet all the boys had such crushes on her. She
No,
was
she's
Oh my
really
God,
she's
I
really
know.
striking. The scenes when
Yeah.
she's a
It
bride
is.
at the end, she looks a lot like Laura Elena Herring in Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland
She's
Drive,
got
yeah.
really
Yes.
dark eyes.
Oh.
Yeah, no, she's pretty great in this. And I didn't recognize Jack Maturin, who plays Virgil. His real name is Christopher Logan. He's just going by a pseudonym in this one, but he's just kind of one of those like jobbers. You know, he's kind of a background like waiter number 6 in like 10 different movies. You know, but he's been around for a long time.
He was also
And,
in Puppet Master 3, y'all.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's
Mhm.
one of the Nazi lieutenants who dies early on. Yeah, so
He's also in a movie that I like, that I will defend, that I know a lot of people don't like, Star Trek Generations.
I
And
like
Howard
Star
the
Trek
Duck.
Generations. Yeah,
I know Howard the Duck.
Also, he did an episode of a show that's very near and dear to my heart because it has my hometown in the name. It was very short-lived. Bakersfield PD, 1993.
Oh boy.
R.I.P. Bakersfield PD.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think
I have not seen this one, but I've heard of it now.
It lasted like half a season. It was not good.
yeah, so there's most of this is playing out as like kind of a revenge drama where this guy who's a former tech billionaire, he was forced out of his company due to like an antitrust lawsuit, and he's trying to take revenge on the people who did this to him. And he's got a great new means of conducting revenge, which is a magical mad scientist machine that turns people into racist action figures. It's
Well, he's an
interesting.
equal opportunity racist.
As he
So,
says, yeah,
true.
and it is interesting that he actually calls out that it's racist. And somebody calls him out for having a racist doll in this. It's just like, yeah, the point of it is that he's trying to humiliate the people that he's converting a little bit, like, you know, because we see this conversion process happen with Miss Agame, who is a Japanese woman that he turns into a very offensive geisha doll named Misfortune.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are the three. It's Misfortune, it's Pimp, who used to be a judge, and then it's Sideshow, who is like a little kind of beefy guy with pierced
Yeah.
nipples, who I think that used to be the prosecutor, right?
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
so. Do you guys have
Um,
a favorite, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh,
Favorite doll?
Man, I think
Probably Sideshow for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say Sideshow based on the doll design. I like the best, but I did something about Misfortune, the origins of that doll made me really like how they went from her in the body compressor machine, which is described as an Iron Maiden, but totally different.
Yes.
Right.
It's like a great description. But from that to then the doll, I really liked that. So I'll say design wise, maybe Misfortune was my favorite. But if we were talking, I know we both were saying earlier on in other episodes that we kind of had an affinity for Tunneler. And I
Yeah.
get something about the upper body movements of Sideshow remind me of that. And I like that. And Pinhead too, kind of, he's got kind of
Yeah.
big arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
And
had a
these
very
ones
connectional
read
for me.
these ones definitely read more like action figures than in the past. Like we
Definitely.
have puppets, we have toys, we have dolls, and like these are like the action figure era. But it's weird to me that in this movie called Blood Dolls, the living killer dolls, the titular characters, are kind of the least interesting thing that's going on. Like I kept
Yeah.
forgetting that they were there.
Yeah.
Also because similar, well, it felt a little bit like in Subspecies, where like these little guys were introduced just because that's a mandate that Charles Band has, is that we always need little guys, we need little
Have to.
tiny terrors.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like anyone was super invested in making these little guys pop. You know,
I
Subspecies
forgot
is
about
the
the
same
little
way.
guys in Subspecies.
Well, that's
Exactly.
why,
I
They,
because
they become used less and
everybody
less.
knows that Subspecies 2 is the best one.
Common knowledge. Yes,
And they
absolutely.
kind of ignore that because it's like not an aspect of it that really means a whole lot. And I feel like that's why they course corrected, and that's why Subspecies
Yeah.
2 is, I feel like, so much better because it's so much more focused. And I think they realize like this, so much of the budget for the initial one was spent on the effects for the little subspecies themselves. And it's kind of like, oh, people don't really care about that. People just want like a horny vampire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pretty
I
much.
imagine the next, were there to be a sequel to Blood Dolls, I imagine that the action figures would kind of be phased out a little bit.
Yeah,
Because, you
I
know,
think so too.
yeah. But that's kind of the interesting thing. And they also kind of do the thing that Puppet Master does, where they waffle a little bit on, are these just like monsters or are these more sympathetic? You know, like we do get to know early on that these are people who have been like wronged and like trapped in this sort of subservient form. So we have a little bit of inherent sympathy for them, but we also don't
Yeah.
know if they're just mindless killing machines.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, you could be a little bit more specific, I think. If I'm going to, you know, Monday morning quarterback the dolls of Blood Dolls. You know, but, yeah.
Well, I mean, you know what, Steve, that's fair because I feel like there's not a ton to nitpick with this one. I feel like from concept to execution, this really hits a lot of the beats of what you want in a full moon B movie. And let's talk for a second about the desk drill, or drill desk, if you like to refer to it that way.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
So this is probably a good time. Summer and Jamie, in your show, you guys like to highlight a particular way that a character dies, because you said you like to do your show in segments. So tell us a little bit about, like, if this were your show, what the segment we would maybe talk about right now would be.
Well, first of all, I will say that this will be our show because tomorrow we are actually recording an episode on Blood Dolls, which will be released very close to when this one comes out. It might even be the same day.
Amazing.
So
Double
when you're done
dolls.
listening to these guys,
Double dolls.
go check out us for more Blood Dolls talk if you haven't had enough. So for my favorite kill on this one, I got to go with, again, that desk drill. I think the character's name is Howard Loftus. Was that the guy's name?
I believe so. Yeah.
It's just so gicky and gross. And I don't know if this would have been my favorite kill if I saw the uncut version, because originally they added 20 seconds, or they took away 20 seconds of this. So my DVD and on Tubi has the full 20 seconds, guts and cartilage and all sorts of ickiness spewing from
It goes
drill.
on for a long time.
It
It is
does.
the they live fight of desk drills.
It is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
good. So that was my favorite. The first time we recorded this, it remains my favorite now. It's just so fantastic. And it's how we open our movie. This is what we get right off the bat. It's awesome. Also, I love it because after dude gets killed, he's sitting there dead and really torn up, literally torn up. And Miss Megami, was that her name, right?
Yeah.
Miss
Mhm.
Megami's sitting there going like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Can I swear? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
Of course, no,
Okay.
encouraged.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So her reaction to that adds to it while he's sitting there, dead. Poor actor guy, by the way. Oh my God, he must have been
Yeah.
dying over there with all that gunk on him. And while they're finishing this scene, I love the whole scene about it.
I love a scene. I love the aspect of a scene when a person is like incredibly brutally like dismembered or disposed of, and the person that they're with is covered in an equal amount of their blood.
Yeah.
I love that.
It gives me vibes of like the ending scenes of the 2013 Evil Dead and ending of Evil Dead Rise. For if anyone hasn't seen it, just know there's a lot of blood on both
There
the
is.
aggressor and the person who is being dismembered.
Well, and
Yeah.
this chair was such a great reveal too, because it's like this is probably the opening 5 minutes of the movie when this happens, right? This is very
so.
It's
quick.
early.
Yeah, right
When
away.
they open up the drill, it's like they really are not hiding that this guy is a psychopath. There's no ramp up, it's just kind of like, oh, he's a weird guy, he keeps slaves in his house, he's got a clown bodyguard, also he's going to kill you immediately.
Uh-huh.
Like there's no ambiguity about who this guy is, and like having this kind of like device come out of this chair, it looked like a Cronenbergian, like a dead
Mhm.
ringer's tool
Yeah.
or something, and then it's like stabbing him in the chest, and just like they're going this hard this fast while this girl group is playing in their cage in the background. It's like, come on.
To
See,
steal
that's
a
what I
quote,
mean, to
to
start a
steal a
movie.
quote from a Simpsons joke that I won't make the actual quote, but I'll sort of piggyback on it. This movie begins in the fireworks factory.
It does. It really does.
Yes.
It's
And
so rewarding too, because like that drill comes out and you're like, I know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be really good, and it really is. Now I will say, I think that is the best kill of the movie, but it's not my favorite one. My favorite one actually is the wire bondage kill. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
adore that one. The build up to it, everything about it, it's like kinky and fun and kind of silly. And then the dolls come along and they're twisting it and you see it, and like that is my favorite kill. I
It
think
was a
that
photo
was
finish
most
for
fun.
me between
Yes.
between the two. I was like, I have to pick one, but I love that one also.
Oh, I
Yeah,
adore
those
it.
are
Same.
both really fun.
And it was
Yeah.
so drawn out, the wire kill. You know what's happening. You know what's going to happen. He doesn't know yet. And then he figures it out. He's like, oh, damn.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a wire kill though. Like wires are a gnarly instrument of death and torture when you think about it. Because I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like a prolonged like
Yeah.
experience. You have to really tighten those up to like
So-
dig into somebody's skin like
So
that.
either do or
Gnarly.
don't watch the first 5 minutes of Road Games.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
We
or the
just
first
mentioned that in our last episode
Yeah. we
Oh
did.
yeah.
because we
Or
did
the first 5 minutes
Psycho
of-
too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I've got a couple more examples of wire deaths in the opening 5 minutes. Ghost Ship
Yes.
and Cube.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Ghost
both-
Ship. That is a good one. Best 5
something
minutes
something
ever.
about the openings of horror movies and wire
The
kills.
Collector,
Okay.
part 2, I think also, but I'm not
Oh my
positive.
God. Have
I
we
know-
stembled onto a conspiracy here?
I know
What
a
does it
whole
mean?
nightclub gets wiped out with wires or a blade or something in
Yeah.
Collector 2. I just can't remember if it was a wire.
Well, there's something about like a really
Yeah.
thin. I mean, I know Road Games, it's a guitar string, but like there's
Yeah.
something about a really thin wire being able to just puncture skin and like take limbs and heads off. That's just so terrifying about
That
it. Like,
scene in Road Games is so smart the way they film it too, because you're hearing the person tuning their guitar and like tightening it as the person is approaching. So like psychologically, we are thinking of how tight this string is gonna get. Richard Franklin, come on,
Yeah.
throw it up. He's great.
Yes,
yeah.
he is. Yes, he is.
Totally lost track of the conversation. That's okay. No, but like
Wires.
it is, yeah, this movie is weirdly talky. Like it's very in some of the later moments it just kind of feels like a one act play, like we're just
Yeah.
people having these conversations and lots of like high tone affectations and things like that, and they're talking business in this very matter of fact way. But like Virgil and I forget the character's name, the Deborah Mayer
Moira.
character,
Moira.
Moira,
Moira.
thank you. It becomes clear that they have like kind of this kinship and this connection. They're both kind of heedlessly ambitious sociopaths,
Yeah.
and like they might actually be a good match for each other. And that's where we get kind of the two splits. And the biggest splits in the endings here is how she reacts to seeing his little tiny baby head.
Yes.
In the original, we see that she is repulsed by it, which honestly doesn't really make sense for the vibe that they're trying to set up. Like, I feel like she would be on board with it as she is more in the second ending. But yeah, she becomes repulsed by it, and then the dolls just like kill her. The cage babies escape. They whack poor Phil Fondacaro with a guitar. That happens in both versions.
Yep.
But I think he dies in one
I
of them.
discovered something I didn't know I loved, which was a murder doll throwing a grenade.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty fun. It's also crazy, like all of this, we barely talked about one of the main characters in this movie, who is a clown bodyguard with sharpened teeth. We haven't really talked about this guy. He shows up looking exactly like Joaquin Phoenix in Joker.
Yep.
Like, I think it's almost an identical, like, rip-off design. Todd Phillips, we're calling you out. You're a Blood Dolls fan.
Yeah, we know you.
Yeah, we know. We see you. We see you.
And
But
his makeup design was designed after Jack Attack.
oh, was he
Yes,
really? Yeah,
yeah.
I guess he is.
Oh,
Yeah, he
okay.
absolutely is. And he's even got the little sharp teeth, and
The sharp teeth look awesome.
Yeah.
and he's just kind of like the Gal Friday throughout the entire movie. Like, you think it's going to be this one-off gag of just this guy wearing clown makeup, and it's kind of revealed, like, it seems like that's his choice of affectation, because he removes the makeup to go undercover at one point, but then we see him putting it back on, like seemingly of his own volition. That's where he's most comfortable.
He says
That
that
is my
good to get
favorite
out of that
moment.
disguise. He said it's like
Yes.
his natural face is his disguise. The makeup is his help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character, guys. He's my favorite. And what really sold me on him was that moment when he's like putting his makeup back on and just says, "It's good to get out of that costume." Like, I loved his voice, his delivery, something about him. I was like so intrigued and drawn to him from the very first minute that I saw him.
Well,
Yeah.
William Paul Burns is a fantastic actor. He hasn't done so much screen, but he stuttered. That's me. He studied at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg.
Oh, wow.
So he's a big theater guy. So
He's
a-
definitely got like
He's theatrical.
yeah.
he's got a very voice actory kind of voice, like this great like
Yeah.
deep barrel
He has a
baritone.
presence, a physical presence as well. He can
Yeah.
command a whole stage. I would have loved. He's still alive, as far as I know, but I would just love to see him perform live in a play because he would just command that stage.
In the full clown makeup. Yeah. I want to do
And
I
you
want
know
to see
what?
King
He's
Lear
a
in
very
full clown
handsome
makeup.
man. I'll
I
take
was
him any
gonna
way I can
say,
get him.
yet another creepy clown for me to have a crush on. Like, come on, give me a break here. Can you stop making these clowns so gorgeous? Like,
Ah, we're trying. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're,
They're
you're
just-
asking a lot.
They're just
I
too
know.
hot.
I know,
Yeah.
they're too hot.
Yeah, we can't have you watching Killer Clowns from Outer Space either. I mean,
I
you know, with
know.
dreamboats.
Super
Dreamboats.
dreamy.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, like we said, the movie wraps up with two pretty similar, but I don't know, I guess they're similar but different. I don't know, that's a terrible way to phrase it, but it's like they hit some of the similar beats. It's just kind of the one element changes of like,
Yeah.
is she repulsed or is she not?
Well,
And do the dolls
also-
escape and do they not?
Right.
Maybe you guys know more about this than I do, but like the second ending that was kind of tacked on, was that to sort of retcon the fact that this documentary now wasn't going to come out and that this tour wasn't going to come out and that they
Oh.
weren't going to do this? Because the first ending, the dolls escape and they sort of like load up into the mystery machine. And
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, follow us for some zany adventures while, you know, while we go tackle some abandoned amusement parks. But that doesn't happen in the second one. And so I really wonder if like they were sort of backdoor piloting a little bit with that first ending and it didn't quite come to fruition.
No, actually, when this movie was done and come out, that was still going to happen.
Oh,
Okay.
It wasn't in, so when this was completed, that was still the plan.
Okay.
And so yeah, it was probably falling apart, but that was the plan. The ending, I mean, he didn't want that first ending, as far as I can tell, to begin with, because he really wanted this to be head of the family. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean,
So-
it's such a strange approach, and it's a very Bandian kind of thing to do. You know, it's future thinking, but also just kind of like needing to roll with some punches. You know, like
Yeah.
he's trying to plan ahead for some kind of franchise. He's leaving all possible doors open. It's very inelegantly done, but also it's like he's a busy guy and he's got things to do. You know, so like
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense that he would approach it this way.
we talked about Head of the
Totally.
Family so much in this episode. I thought about Head of the Family so much watching this movie. And
Yeah.
we sort of, you know, in getting ready for the show, we wanted to kind of stagger some of the really big titles because we didn't want to just fly through the heavy hitters of stuff people were going to want to see right away. And so some of the titles we kind of just put in the back burner. It's like, we'll get to that one when we think the time is right. And Head of the Family is one of those where it's like, we want to kind of stagger it, but I also really want to talk about Head of the Family
Yeah.
I
soon.
really do. I really do.
This
I
is
might-
your sign, guys. You might have to talk about it now because we just spent some time talking about it. It's your sign. It's time.
It's yeah, we might need to bump it up. I don't know, or at least
Rework
I'm just gonna
some
like
facts and figures and figure
yeah, at
out
least
where we
I'm
can
just gonna
squeeze that
watch
guy
it
in.
again.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna watch
I'm
it
gonna
again
have
on
to
my
watch
own
it now.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say, Steve? I in preparation for coming on here because I figured I needed to know, what we were going to be talking, like your
Right.
format and all. I
Mhm.
listened to your Tourist Trap episode.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in Tourist Trap, we also did a Tourist Trap episode. We loved it.
Mhm.
We did that 2 years ago. In your Tourist Trap episode, I think it was you, Steve. I don't think it was Jared. You talked
Oh, I
about
really hope this is somewhere where he fucked up. Please,
no,
please call him out.
somewhere where I realized I love Steve a lot. Steve, you
Oh.
talked about your early exposure to mannequins and the thought of mannequins coming to life, and you mentioned today's special.
Oh yeah.
That was my most favoriteest show ever when I was like 4. I never missed it. We taped it
Oh.
on Betamax. I mean, I was
I've heard this story.
obsessed.
Yep, she loves it.
And
Weirdest
I-
show.
And I
Weirdest
became a
show.
fan of mice after that because, Muffy the Mouse.
Muffy the Mouse. Yeah.
We had Jody, and then we had this weird security guard puppet guy person in a costume, and
Yeah.
the Jeff, the cute mannequin with a full hot guy poof going on.
There
And
we go.
and I mean, I think it was Jeff. I'm sorry, this is all memory. But when you said that, and no one else on your podcast knew the show, and I was
Yeah.
like, I love.
I don't
this
know
sh-
this one.
I talk about this show all the time on our
Yeah.
podcast. because
That's edifying
my
to hear. I
origin.
was
I know it
story.
secondhand through her.
Yeah.
I've never seen this show.
Our,
it's on Big TV.
yeah.
Our
It
guest
was
on that show was Danny Torkel, who is like an online YouTuber and critic and horror writer who's like a good friend of mine. And he and I were in the same boat where we were kind of just like looked at each other like, okay. And then I pulled up a picture of it on my phone. And then coincidentally, after the episode dropped, another good friend of mine texted me and was like, "You've never seen today's special?" And I
love
was
those
like, "No, I'm
Canadian
sorry to
puppet
disappoint
shows. I was
you."
into them so much. That one
Yeah.
under the umbrella tree, like Canadians had some really creepy, awesome, good puppet shows. But
Aw.
today's special was my jam, and no one's
Yeah.
ever heard of it. So when you said that, Steve, I knew we had to be best friends. I just
Oh.
knew.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'd always thought I was having like some kind of Mandela effect with
Right.
that show.
Was
Where
this a
like,
fever
like
This
dream?
happened?
Yeah.
yeah, like is this just like a segment on Pee Wee or something? And I blew it up into being its whole own show. Because yeah, but no, yeah, it was a real show. It was really weird.
And I
But
follow the woman
formative.
who plays the puppeteer and the voice of Muffy on Instagram.
yeah, do you do? Oh my god, it's such a random cut.
Aw.
Wow.
It's
Fantastic.
amazing.
And I want to say one more thing. Also, you talked about the forward thinkingness of Charles Band. This is a quote that I saved for our episode. I mentioned it in our Blood Dolls episode a couple of years ago, the first time we did this with our first co-host. Can I read it for you guys?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
This was recorded in, he said, late May 1999. Movie was just about to come out. All right. He says, as a small independent film, this picture will survive. I believe in the year 2020, you will be able to access movies by some sort of satellite mode, and you'll just be in the mood for this kind of weird, strange film, and you'll access this movie from the internet and just zap this movie down.
Whoa.
Every time, I
He
swear to
knew.
God, like that guy really has the home entertainment market like really kind of figured out. He
Yep,
was a pretty early
genius.
adopter of VHS. He was a pretty early adopter of direct-to-video. And then he was kind of an early forecaster of streaming, like the Tubi and Freevee networks are basically built on Charles Band movies at this
Yes.
point. So
Yes.
yeah.
And so this was recorded, it's on my DVD in May 1999,
Amazing.
Wow.
He
right?
called it. He called it.
Vision.
And he also said that by the year 2010 or 2015, when he's made 500 films, he thinks there will be maybe 20 or 30 that will stand alone, and he hopes that this will be one of them. By the way, this is the 65th movie of Full Moons
Wow.
Wow.
under
okay.
that Full Moon title. Not
And I
counting all the
I
others,
don't think
but
we're
Full Moon
quite
title.
we're not quite at 500, but if we include like the Empire films and some of the less Moonbeam and Torchlight and stuff like that, we're probably getting close.
You get close to
300.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get
Yep.
we're in the
It's up there.
multiple hundreds, and it's kind of crazy. the accuracy with
Yeah.
which he called that. I almost
gets it.
expected you to say, like, you know, there at some point in 2023 there might be 4 really cool people with microphones talking about this
Yeah.
movie and how much they love it and how enduring it is.
Well, he kind of did
Yeah.
when he said this will survive and this will be a standalone film.
Yeah.
It has.
Yeah.
Called
Because
it.
we're all still talking about it right now.
I would say,
Called
like,
it.
if you were to curate the list of like the 20 full moon movies you need to see to like kind of understand what the full moon brand is all about, I think I would throw this one in there for sure.
Mhm.
Like, it might get overshadowed a little bit by Head of the Family, which is pretty similar and I think a little bit better, like not
Yeah.
to, you know, apples and oranges, but like really probably a little bit more impactful. But I think this, you can make an argument that this is definitely one of the ones you need to see.
Mhm.
I
had a
agree
gr-
with you.
I had a
And
great time with this.
Mhm.
I had a blast. I laughed and like I loved like the kills. They were really great and the dolls were good. And you know, honestly, at first I was like, do I want more dolls? Cuz like they're not the main focus, but I was so intrigued and into the rest of everything that was going on. I didn't really need more dolls in this one.
No, it is so weird how tertiary the actual killer action figures feel in
I
this
know.
movie that's supposed to be the focus. But again, he can't help himself. He's got to throw some little guys in there every single time. And it works because you bought the pimp, Summer. You have the action figure.
Yeah.
Like
No,
it-
I wish to God, and I don't know if they ever were made because I bought this later, much later on eBay. I wish so badly that the other ones were made.
yeah.
Like, I want
Yeah.
Sideshow and I want Misfortune, and I always have, and I've never been able to find them. But I would assume they were because I remember way back when Puppet Master was popular in the mid 90s, you know, after they'd done a few, they
Mhm.
were releasing full-size action figures of our puppets, and I saw them in Spencer's and stuff, right? And so yeah, man, I mean, where's my Misfortune and Sideshow? Were they ever made? I wish they were.
Where's Pink's
Yeah.
head?
It says behind me.
Okay.
No, he's right there. He's floating.
Somebody
Yeah.
somebody get Charlie on the horn and let's remedy this and let's see if we can't
Yeah,
get
like a little,
these
like,
into
sack
production.
and a little
Um,
knife.
I really want the basket of
Those
all of the
stuffed
captured
fishes.
ones. You know, when she gets them, Moira has the little basket with
Yeah.
them captured. I would
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, or the cage. I think it's like a cage. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I
like
want.
like a kennel or something.
I like
yeah.
the box they
Yeah.
came in. Like when
Mm.
Elkie Mad's a little
That's
box.
nice
I like
too.
the box.
And I like
Oh, yeah.
I like the touch that when they're in the cage that their mouths are taped
I
closed too. It's just
know.
kind of adorable.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Yeah.
The funny thing about branding with Full Moon, we've talked about this in a few episodes, is that besides being really forward thinking in terms of home video release and how people will consume content in the future, I think making Full Moon a brand with all different kinds of merchandise obviously is something that Charles Band was really good at. And I've seen people post in different Facebook groups and Twitter and other places, like people posting Full Moon stuff that they either bought at conventions now or stuff that they held on to for years. And I'm myself personally not much of a collector of figures or figurines or dolls, but I do like to get trinkets from movies. And I've seen people post all of the like Full Moon trading cards from the first few sets from the movies that they had that Charlie Spradling was trying to sell to me in some of the video zones.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh man, I want those. So I've been like perusing eBay. Like I need to get a whole set of Puppet Master 3 trading cards because like just to have, because I do like to have collectibles like that around. And it's just, that's the great thing about Full Moon as a brand, is that it isn't all just clothing or apparel, or it isn't all just action figures. He really dipped into all of these different kinds of media. I mean, I bought Puppet Master and Trancer's graphic novels, like comic books, it's like a little collection of a few issues of each one, I think. And just stuff like that. When I see it, my buddy was in Forbidden Planet. Shout out to Forbidden Planet in the city in down near Union Square, Manhattan, an amazing store with all kinds of stuff like this. And he grabbed me a Subspecies lunchbox from
How
there.
awesome.
I mean, I would love, again, I'm similarly not much of like an action figure collector, but the moment they make a full moon themed Lego set, I'm spending all my money on it. I mean, obviously they've got to build the Bodega Bay Hotel with all the little Puppet Master guys in there.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. Give me
There's
all
got to be a
that.
Kickstarter for that somewhere.
There's
Like
got to be.
someone
Sign me
has
up.
Come on, there's
to.
got to be.
Yeah.
Someone's building the toy factory from Demonic Toys and like, get 'em- yeah,
We can
gonna buy
dream,
'em.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Someone might be sitting down in the year 2030 building a Lego set from this standalone movie.
Yeah, let's put it out into the world. Let's put that on our
Yes.
vision board, like we're just going to say, yeah, Puppet Master Legos 2030, at
This is
the far.
happening.
This is going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and talking about this absolutely batshit movie with us and bringing it to our attention. I think this has become a new favorite. Maybe not number one favorite, but it's in the discussion for one of my favorites that we've watched on the show.
I got to say, the more time goes by, I saw this when it was fairly new. It'd probably been out. I rented it maybe a year after it came out. So I saw it when it was new. The longer the time has gone by, the more I enjoy this movie. And I think
Yeah.
now it honestly has grown to be one of my favorite full moon movies, honestly.
I adored it. This was a first time watch for me, and I kind of already want to like rewatch it.
Yeah.
Already.
No, I want to
welcome.
do Blood Dolls Head of the Family like double feature. I just want to kind of sit down and rewatch it. I
Yes.
think this Head of the Family is one of the ones that I've seen the most. It's like
Yeah.
it goes into my rewatch kind of category, and I think Blood Dolls is going to go in there too.
I mentioned in another episode about how sometimes I would like to have movies on in the background. When we were a little younger, me and some of my friends would have parties and we would put movies on with no sound in the background at Halloween time. And people would kind of catch a glimpse of some of the imagery of what was happening. And it was rare that we would put something that was super mainstream on. We would put on things that we wanted people to respond to. This is making my curated Halloween background movie playlist from now on, because this movie, I mean, if I wanted to really like sum it up in a way that young people describe things now, 5 stars, no notes.
Yeah.
Like I had so much fun. It was my initial relationship with it was very piecemeal, more from Reputation, and then like, oh yeah, this scene, that's from that movie, that's a good one. Oh yeah, we'll get back to that one soon. But no real sense of urgency until Summer You were like, fuck you got to do Blood Dolls.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, to be fair, I did choose this movie without Jamie's consent. I apologize, Jamie, for not.
I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, but I knew you'd love it.
Always.
See, I knew you'd love it. And when I was talking to Jared, I knew you'd already done, or were going to do Puppet Master. You already had someone, or you already were doing that, so that was out. Oh God! And I think you already did Dolls at some point. I'm like, God, what's another good one? That's Dolly, like us, like Dolly. And I was like, duh, Blood Dolls, so good, love it. Yeah.
It was really fortuitous that we ended up with this one, and I think it was just a
I kinda
perfect
pushed
fit.
it in for you. I'm like,
Yeah, no, you
I did it.
really did, and sort of a perfect fit that this ended up being the ones that you guys joined us for, because I just feel like it's the perfect, like, to have you guys here with the dolls of horror with then what was
Yeah.
presented in this movie is just such a perfect mix. And speaking of perfect mix, like, what I really love about this movie is that this is one of those times, like, when full moon hits and it is both intentionally and occasionally unintentionally funny, but also gross and gory and over the top, is, to me, like, that's full moon at its best, when those aspects are both working, where it's like you recognize the comedy, you recognize the horrific elements. Like, maybe you're not scared by this movie, but I don't know that this movie is ever really trying to scare you. It just
Not
wants to
really.
make you kind of laugh and then witness some really bloody gore effects and deaths, which are a little bit more drawn out, like we talked about before, than some that you get in other movies, which I appreciate. I like the fact that the drill desk doesn't just puncture and then cut. Like, we stay on the drill desk for a long time.
Yes.
His
Yeah.
body
And I-
twitches.
Yes.
And I really like that about this. So for me, we talked about Doll Man recently, and I was saying how, like, Dollman similarly is one that I feel like the comedy is front and center through so much of it, and there's so much batshit imagery that it just checks all the full moon boxes. This one does the same. This checks all the boxes for me. This jumped right up to one of my very favorites. I am so glad that you suggested it for us so that we could move it up kind of sooner in our queue of episodes that we have scheduled out, and not had this one shelved until, like July of next year or something like that.
Yeah. No, this was a great discovery. So thank you for bringing that one forward. Tell us once again where people can find your show.
Okay, so you can find our show on Apple and Spotify and some other podcast platforms, but mainly Apple and Spotify is the standard ones, The Dolls of Horror. You can also get us on Instagram at The Dolls of Horror, and our Twitter, X, is that what they call it now? It's kind of neglected. I'm trying to get back into it. That's just at Dolls of Horror. You can get Jamie at Girl on Gore, girl period on period gore, right, Jamie?
That's me.
Right. And you can get me personally at Sumflynn, SUMFLYNN, like my name. And we have a YouTube channel as well. So that is, just The Dolls of Horror on YouTube. And that's where a lot of our episodes are up on there. We have a few on there, but not a whole lot. That's mainly a lot of like panels and even some movies and stuff that are kind of more public domain that YouTube will allow us to post. They're on there too. So yeah.
Amazing.
Anything you want to add to that, Jamie? Did I miss anything?
I think you hit all of them, but listeners, we love to talk horror, so we're always open to suggestions on horror movies to cover, things that we've either seen or never seen before. We adore recommendations and just nerding out, so hit us up anytime.
Yeah, man.
I think you probably share some DNA then with not only us, but with a lot of our listeners. So I'm hoping that everybody who is unfamiliar seeks out Dolls of Horror after they listen to this episode. And if you like what we do on this show, then jump on to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave us a 5-star review. You can leave us a 5-star review both sincerely and sarcastically. It's really the way, if you hate the show, it's the way to show us that you hate the show.
Yeah, we'll just inflect it differently. Yeah, we'll understand.
Yeah, you can even
so good.
Right, you can even leave a review if you want. And if the more O's in the word "so," the better.
Yes.
If you want to follow us on our personal socials, I am _Giallo_Jerry. Steve can be found at Minotaur Matador. Our show, the Instagram proper is puppetmasters_Castle Freaks. So check us out for updates and cool stuff if you enjoy what we've been doing. We are also trying to get our YouTube going, so I will be starting getting some content that isn't just the audio of the episodes up on there as well. We want to be a little more interaction with the people who've found us on YouTube and have been watching the show that way. And we've got a lot of super fun stuff coming up. So Steve, let's let our listeners know what they are in store for next week.
Absolutely. Next week, we are dipping back into the Empire days for a VHS cover that is definitely burned into my brain. A movie called Rawhead Rex. British movie about a killer monster stalking the moors. A lot of fun. I think it's based on a Clive Barker story, if I'm not mistaken. Fun movie. So we're going to have a good time talking about that one.
Yeah, and we've got a really special guest who's going to join us on that show too. You probably have seen her stuff on YouTube under the channel name Horror Movies and Beyond. Her name is Evotrace Littles, and she will be joining us to talk about Rawhead Rex. Jamie is aware. She did a little heart into the camera. I know that's bad radio.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Super excited to get that episode out into the world, and just so glad that you guys took the time to join us today to talk about Blood Dolls, because Steve may not use these exact words, but he's a changed man.
I'm deeply changed. Yeah, no. Fundamentally, my DNA has turned into a little plastic man. So thank you for doing that.
Nothing will ever be the same after this.
Nope.
Very
Thank
true.
you guys so much for having us.
Oh my God, anytime. This is a blast.
And I would like to use this moment to formally invite both of you gentlemen to be a guest on our show at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, we'd love to.
We cordially accept.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay.
It's so fun.
Probably in 2 separate episodes. Like Jared will be on one and Steve will be on the other because we run long anyway. Like really
Fair
long.
enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So
We go
we'll
off the
break you guys
rails.
up, but we would just love to have you on to talk about a movie. in the near
Amazing.
future.
Anytime.
That'd be
Anytime.
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
Anytime.
there you
Thanks
go,
so much.
listeners. Something else to look
Crossover.
forward to in the future. And we
Yeah.
will see you guys next week for Rawhead Rex. Stay tuned.